Hi, I'm Amanda, and today I'm going to be talking about Ruru, a new conservation database that we've now got at Auckland Council. I am a Senior Bioinformation Analyst in the Environmental Services Department. Just a bit of an outline of what I'll be going through today. What is Ruru? How does it work? Ruru example, and then just a bit about the ongoing work with Ruru. Firstly, what is Ruru? Basically, it is a centralised place to store, view and manage conservation data within Auckland Council. For the past 2.5 years, the natural environment targeted rate has been included in property rates in Auckland. This creates extra funding to help protect Auckland's natural environment. This work is on top of any work that is done in Council as part of BAU. The targeted rate is worth $311 million over 10 years, and obviously with so much investment, we needed to track progress and the effectiveness of this extra funding. Ruru is a platform using a range of Esri products that we can now use to do just that. Here is an example of some of the work that is carried out as part of the targeted rate and BAU. In environmental services, we've got the Kauri Dieback program, which is quite topical in the Auckland and Northland region. We've got species management, restoration planting, marine biosecurity, conservation dogs, pest plant and pest animal control, community engagement and campaigns. So you can see that it is quite a variety of work. So to keep things structured in Ruru, these have been broken into themes, and then the various programs of work fall within those themes. Just a little bit about Ruru infrastructure and the setup. We've got SDE and Enterprise portal using a variety of Esri apps to allow different functionality across the system. This is across 3 different environments: development, test, and production. For the field apps, we're primarily using Survey 123 and Collector, and we'll be looking to transition to field maps towards the end of the year. We've got operational dashboards to view operational and reporting metrics and to track change over time. And we're using Waihi or Web App Builder for developers to create workbenches where users can add, view and manage data in the office. These workbenches are just for Auckland Council internal use only. And then we're using standard Web App Builder to allow contractors to add, view and manage data in the office. So, how does Ruru work? Just a bit of background with the Ruru data structure. So quite a complex data structure with the variety of data going into Ruru. There was quite a bit of time spent on making sure that the data structure would fit business needs and worked with any out-of-the-box Esri products, but also be robust enough to allow flexibility as time went on. So this data structure had to handle all the information that was coming in. We've got the Kauri Dieback, got the pest animal program, the pest plant program, marine biosecurity. So you can imagine there's a lot of features and relationships within the database, but more often than not, there's only a few of these used in any particular workflow or work program. Putting together this data structure and data model and the schemas, there was quite a bit of research done nationally and internationally just to make sure that we could fit in with any existing data standards. There weren't too many data standards of this type in New Zealand, so we did the best we could and made sure that the data could fit easily with any data from other organisations, so we could have easier collaboration. Here's just a quick example of the data we've got set up for the pest plant work, about 7 different features and different relationships. Currently, we've got 10 different pest plant programs using Ruru, and of course, they've got slightly different workflows. These pest plant programs are across multiple departments, so slightly different purposes for them. So we need to use different parts of the data structure to fit business needs, and these 7 are just for the pest plant workflows. Simply, the pest plant programs involve going to an area, searching for a pest plant, marking these pest plant locations, and then controlling it. One of the pest plant programs is the buffer program. In this program, the control areas are predefined, property boundaries, and the contractors go survey these properties and mark in these pest plant point locations. Another pest plant program is the low incidence program. The aim of this program is to stop new pest plants becoming established in the Auckland region. This work is done in collaboration with NPI. So typically there will be infestation points scattered across the Auckland region, and these points are repeatedly visited over a few years to ensure that the control has worked effectively. Then there's the Regional Park Pest Plant Program, which is a combination of the previous two programs, and contractors will add in new pest plant observations, as well as revisiting previously known infestation sites. The first two programs were easy, and we could just have one setup or one service for each with a unique combination of features, relationship classes, and default value set. But because of how the data is collected in the Regional Park Pest Plant Program and the functionality restrictions with the Collector app, we have to set things up differently. So Collector doesn't allow offline replica features within a web map when taking the web map offline. Also, there is no ability to add a child geometry record without creating a parent record first. So in this example, we need 3 services, each with a different combination of relationship classes to get the functionality that we need. And because of the centralized setup, all of the data from all 10 pest plant programs are centralized and visible in one place for the first time ever, which is super exciting. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the functionality that has been built into Ruru, just to allow the system to be more dynamic and responsive. We've got a centralized reference tables. This example here is a species reference table. Previously, there were tons of lists for different species, and more often than not, there were differences in these lists, and especially differences in the common names, scientific names, Māori names, or spelling errors. So with Ruru, we've got one species table for all flora and fauna, and it has all the information that anyone could ever need. We've got status in New Zealand, native or exotic, different threat statuses, endangered, at risk, or declining. We've also got old scientific names, or what the names might be in other databases like the NEWA freshwater fish database. We've got quite a few different reference tables being used across Ruru for organisations, programs, etc. From these reference tables, we've got a scheduled overnight task that can generate or update domain lists across the system. So we can use specific queries to get a subset of what is in the table. For example, native birds versus exotic bird species. Also, if we add in a new species in the reference table, then this will be updated in the domains across the system. A customization that was done for Ruru that wasn't quite out of the box was to set up a process to update these domains and lists within Survey 123 forms, where the script will retrieve the zipped CSV file within the published Survey 123 form, update the domain or list, and then reinsert the CSV file. This happens on a nightly basis, so maintains any domains and lists that are needed in those published forms, which is great. To ensure the data is user-friendly, we've also got a range of tasks that will manipulate various bits of data. We're calling these reporting layers, slightly different to the field collection layers where field data will go into. So just a couple of examples here. We've got pest plant point and pest plant polygons. So to make it easier, we merge them together so that these are just in one place and it's easy to look for that information. We've got one that merges multiple data sets together to save users having to turn on 8 different layers so they can see where the control work has been done. We've got a spatial join to identify the status of a particular species depending on what area it is found. And we're also utilising APIs to bring in external data sets so we can see data from other organisations and data sources so we can see the broader context of things. One example for that is iNaturalist. So we've got a great dashboard that tracks all of these overnight scheduled tasks and if they have worked successfully or if anything has failed. And this is normally the sort of first point of call we go to if we've got any errors in the system. We're also using a lot of attribute rules to make sure that the data is more dynamic and a bit more functional. We've got an attribute rule that generates a unique short ID for each new record in Ruru, one that concatenates species names, so scientific name, Māori name, and common name from the species table, a good way to get around the macron issue. One that populates fields based on what is in the reference table. Another attribute rule to do calculations, calculating density, etc. And then another one that searches through related records to find information. So now we're going to go through an example of how all of this works together in Ruru. So we're going to go back to the pest plant low incidence example that I briefly showed before. Whenever we're looking at a new program of work to go into Ruru, we look at how it can fit in the existing data structure. Then we'll look at what field app is best suited for the specific workflow. Obviously, Collector is very map-centric and Survey 123 is very form-centric. And sometimes we'll use a combination of the two. Here's some screenshots. We've got the majority of the data features and relationships in Collector, but Survey 123 was better suited for the control visit part. So we've got a link in one of the pop-ups that will pass the global ID through so that data integrity is maintained. You can see some of the attribute rules working here and the infestation point in Collector. We've got the infestation point short ID and the date last checked and date last found. You can also see the related pest plant and pest plant area records to each infestation point. This information is then visible through the workbench and dashboards back in the office. We've got the internal view for Auckland Council staff, allowing them to view all of the data and operational and reporting metrics. Then of course there will be contractors working on this program. Typically contractor maps only show information that is relevant to them for business privacy reasons. In this program, there are 5 contractors working, so there ends up being quite a bit of portal content. And because we've got 3 environments, this is trebled across dev, test, and production. And this is just for one program of work, so you can imagine how much content we have across our SDE and Portal environments. But of course, we've got a nice dashboard to keep track and monitor content in Portal and SDE. And another dashboard, so we can go into more detail about how these differences or where they might be. So now that we've built the database, we need to put the data in. There is a mountain of data across a variety of sources. We've got AGOL, SDE, other council SDEs, spreadsheets, PDF, paper. And so we're slowly working through these, tidying them up and primarily using FME to migrate the data through. Once the data is in there, then we obviously have to decommission the old sources of data and make sure the cut over to the new system is complete. This includes making changes to existing data collection tools and then data viewers such as GeoMaps, Open Data, etc. Just a small bit about continuous improvement. Work is obviously ongoing to support a system like this, and this includes supporting the initial implementation through training and fixing any bugs, adding any new programs of work into the system that sort of pop up or ones that we've missed out, and then ongoing work into collaboration with council departments and external organisations. And of course, enhancements to the system, taking in user feedback and improved functionality and changes to keep up with new technology. So that is Ruru in a nutshell. Any questions, you can email them through. Thanks.